All right, good afternoon, Salt Spring Island. This is Jai with Salt Spring Life, and today I'm thrilled to have William MacPherson with me today. And I'm really excited to get to know you better, William. We've been chatting over Zoom for like the last year and a half, and this is my first time meeting you in person. So, welcome, and it's lovely to have you here. Today we're here to talk about some of the initiatives that you're involved with, which I'm super pumped to hear about. And I know the Salt Spring Island Mental Wellness Initiative is our first topic. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about what you're doing there and about who you are as a person and anything else you'd like to do to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Jai. It's very exciting to finally get to meet you in person. Is it okay if I just introduce a bit about who I am, just to provide some context?
I'd love that, man. Absolutely.
So when I was a young man, I was debilitated by mental illness and addiction. And for most of that time, I lived on Salt Spring. And I've been on a lifelong journey to try to understand why I was that way and what I need to do to heal. And so I'm really interested in mental health and community. So in my community involvement, I started by getting involved with the Chuan Society, which is an arts community that's really focused on advocacy, particularly for people who are marginalized in our community. And then that's led to a series of opportunities. So I now work at Community Services. I'm a harm reduction peer support worker, and that's been an amazing journey. They've treated me really well, and it's been just great for growing into the role that I want to have in the community. And I'm also part of the Salt Spring Mental Wellness Initiative. And that is an initiative where we're really trying to bring together people who are clinicians and provide services with other community members, particularly people, again, who are marginalized and people who have lived experience. And so I came in as somebody with lived experience, and at first it was a little nerve-wracking to be living so openly about it, but it's been a phenomenal experience. We treat lived experience with mental illness as a form of expertise. It's like the expertise around the context that these things happen. And yeah, it's been amazing.
Fantastic. That's such important work. And how do you, I love that idea of lived experience providing, the expertise to kind of guide the protocols and the mission and to be, a part of how mental wellness is delivered, because you're able to articulate, what worked for you and you were healing and the other folks that are involved. What's your process to kind of garner that expertise and infuse and integrate it into the planning process?
Well, what was really powerful for me was realizing how much my own self-consciousness, my own discomfort with connecting, got in the way of doing good collaborative work. And we really took the time in the initiative to get to know each other. We kind of started when COVID struck. And so we were all going through new, unexpected stresses and challenges. And by taking the time to really get to know each other, we'd do check-ins every meeting, and we'd really say what we were going through. And relating to people authentically got me comfortable in my own skin. It's really informed my work at Community Services. And I've just really noticed how it brings out this kind of collective intelligence when we meet. We're not trying to push our ideas on each other. We're just kind of intuitively exploring different subjects that relate to mental health. And that's how we came up with the topics for our summits. Peer support and lay counseling felt like high leverage subjects because they're a way we can expand our mental health capacity with Salt Springers. Right. Normally we're trying to recruit clinicians and there's no housing and it's a huge challenge. But if we can empower community members who are already probably doing informal kinds of peer support, mutual support, to be professionals, it's a way we could really expand the capacity we have to serve more people who need help more than ever. Because of the pandemic, it's been really challenging for a lot of people's mental health.
Absolutely it has. And I think a big part of that is the isolation too, and the inability to share kind of what's going on for yourself during this time or during any time. So I really love how the way you organized it to, take your time and get to know each other and be vulnerable and have those check-ins in some ways speaks to the model that you're creating, because it's that ability to dialogue and express and be vulnerable and communicate that is so much a part of the healing journey.
Yeah.
So if you can have that peer support where people have time for each other and also have the empathy and understanding about what people are going through, I mean, you see that being really impactful and effective.
It's powerful. Before I forget, is it okay if I read our mission for the summits?
I'd love to hear it. Absolutely.
I promised I wouldn't forget this. It's a lot of words, but it's important to be able to express what we're about.
Absolutely, please.
Our mission with the summits is to bring together Salt Spring Island's mental health community, providers, users, marginalized, and other community members to mobilize cooperatively around issues and needs of and for mental wellness, co-creating a community in which everyone belongs, recognizing that each person's needs are unique and that treating them individually is essential.
Like it. Wow.
All right, one more piece before I.
A lot of thought went into that. That's fantastic,
yeah, it's been evolving,
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've been part of kind of a non-hierarchical, co-creative, collective journey, and it's really just a totally different experience. And I think there's so much shame and stigma and esteem issues when we're mentally ill, when we're suffering from addiction, and having my experiences recognized as valuable. It's been incredible, and I really want to help be a bridge so that other people who've really been through it can also be recognized as like, you have expertise that is sorely needed. The mental health crisis has been getting worse, and I think that it's because we're missing half the experts.
So true, and how empowering that is after you've received so much support and love, and you've come from this dark sort of place to a place of healing, and through that process it can feel like our ability to contribute is compromised a bit. So to be where you are now and to be giving back and to be leading the way with these summits is just really inspiring, man. I just really appreciate it.
Very kind, Jai. I appreciate you too. One more thing before I forget. Thank you to our sponsors, Island Health, the CRD, the Salt Spring Foundation, and the Government of British Columbia. And also thank you to Salt Spring Community Services, iWave, and the Salt Spring Community Health Society, who held funds for us and have been amazing partners. All right, I'm going to get rid of that now.
Now, those are important things to acknowledge, right?
Really takes the full team,
It does.
I notice often we have these siloed organizations who are all doing amazing work, but we're one community. And it's really going to take collaboration to make, I think there are improvements that we all want to see. So the summits our first summits on peer support are happening January 11th from 2 to 5 p.m. and January 18th from 3 to 6 p.m. They're the same agenda for both summits, so you don't need to attend both, but if you're interested in attending one, please reach out to me. My email is willieonsaltspring@gmail. So that's WILLIEONSALTSPRING@gmail.com.
It'll be included in the link below.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe I shouldn't have spelled it out.
No, I think it's great. And can you share a little bit about how the summits are going to be organized, or kind of what it's going to look like, and how people can participate and contribute?
So we're doing it over Zoom, but we're going to have an in-person component in the library programming room. Masks will have to be worn because of where we're at with the pandemic, except when we're speaking. So we're not trying to do a presentation where we've got it all figured out. We've been thinking a lot about it, and we'll have a presenter, but really what we want to do is facilitate community engagement. We think that our experience of this collective wisdom and what arises from it being so much greater than the sum of its parts is really a lesson for the broader community. And so what we're trying to do is facilitate people with different experiences to share their perspective, to share what they know, and see how we can organize that into action. So we'll follow the peer support with lay counseling in February, which is another way where caring community members can use their own life experiences to do mental health work without having to go to school for 5-6 years and become a clinician.
Right, yeah.
And then in March, we're going to meet again, and we're going to focus on mobilization.
Okay.
What do we do now? Right now in our culture, peer support is largely focused on drug use, right? So whether it's abstinence-based or harm reduction, it's really focused on people who've had problems with drug and alcohol, helping people who still have those problems. But I think the possibilities are way broader. You know, there's so many things that challenge people, and it's just so powerful to be able to talk to somebody who can relate to that. And so I know like iWave is looking at peer support. I know Daisy has some models where they sometimes connect people who could really use somebody who understands what they've been through. Community Services also has a volunteer program for seniors, you know, because the issues seniors face, I mean, that's half our population.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I think the same is true for youth. So I'm really excited to get outside of the box and like think what the possibilities are. And it's also worth mentioning, one of the reasons I got interested in this before I was doing peer support myself as a profession, I read the new provincial mandate, A Pathway to Hope, and they talked about having peer support networks as part of the mandate. And so I think that means there's going to be funding, and getting funding for paid positions is always an issue. So that was another thing that informed us getting really excited about this topic. But I, just as I monologue to you.
No. I love all the information, and I love the work you're doing, and I think the peer support model, you know, is impactful. It's solid, and I'm also mindful of a little story you told me before we, you know, started the cameras around your involvement in Ask Salt Spring and some of the feedback you received about, you know, some folks in the community that have been a bit isolated, or maybe there's some fear, don't exactly know what's going on in the mental health kind of world on the island, and also how to contribute and how to give back, because I think there's a real desire to help, and I think there is a paralysis in knowing or recognizing, you know, what they can leverage in their own skill set, and how to do it in a respectful way, in a safe way, of course. And yeah, I just wonder if you could speak to that a little bit.
Well, I think we need liberating structures so that if people want to give a little bit, a couple hours a week or what have you, that we can plug them into a system where they can help. When I started getting involved in mental health here during the pandemic, people would ask me, oh, I want to get involved, what can I do? Didn't have answers for them, you know, and that's why I did ask Salt Spring. I was trying to learn the landscape, you know. It's a great community engagement piece, and the Mental Wellness Initiative is also really focused on effective community engagement. You know, not tokenism, but really listening to community and having community inform how we do our work. We don't think that we have the answers. We're not trying to convince people of a certain course of action. We're just trying to facilitate healthy collaboration so that the community can advocate as one voice, and we can make, you know, changes that are much needed, and organize all the amazing members we have into effective initiatives.
So how can people, people can log into Zoom, or they can come to the library, they can be a part of it. If they're a clinician or a different kind of healer, they can sign up to share what they've been doing in that realm, or can people email in questions in advance, or
they're welcome to email me. The breakout rooms will have structured questions, so we're trying to organize the thinking, but really the power is when people come from these diverse backgrounds. You know, we all have unique experiences and wisdom that we've garnered from a lifetime, and I think that every person's perspective is like a little piece of this giant mosaic. And as we build this mosaic, we'll start to have a real picture of where we're at and what we can do to be in a better place. I think there's a great, you know, yearning for it. I think in a way, the challenges of the pandemic have had a silver lining, in that people are really finally ready to talk about mental health in a way that just wasn't there before. I recently spoke at the Connection Project in Saanich, put on by Emily Olson, and you know, I get people celebrate you doing that. They say how courageous it is, and so I just want to be clear: I'm not courageous. Largely, I'm privileged, and in my privilege and in the way I present, I knew that most people were going to receive me well. The real heroes are the people who are struggling every day, and they're still doing the best that they can, trying to get through, trying to make tomorrow a little bit better. I think it's finally politically expedient to talk about mental health, and that's great, But I really want to be clear, like, let's not celebrate the people whose privilege allows them to be in the position I'm in, because it's a lot of luck, you know. And while I worked really hard, I don't think I would have survived, let alone thrived, if I hadn't had family that could afford to take care of me and had the inclination to do so. So sometimes we see people in our community, maybe they're in Ganges, and they might be drinking in public, you might hear yelling. I really encourage empathy, because the people who are really struggling in the community, they're the ones that inspire me. They deal with so much more than I had to deal with, and I found my own journey totally overwhelming. So yeah, I just really want to put that out there, that until you know people's stories, you can't imagine what folks go through.
That's right. Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. And I think we've all got a story, you know, and we've all got pain, and we've all, you know, overcome different obstacles in our life. And there's a spectrum in that, of course. And there's a spectrum in the privilege and the support that we naturally have in our situation. So I think that's a really important acknowledgement, because we sometimes forget how lucky we are just to have a place to live and people that love us, and how much easier it is to heal with that support.
Yeah, it's foundational, and that's, you know, I feel like I have real value to contribute, you know, to the community for the first time in my life. And I just want to also make the case that we need to take care of people, to give them the opportunity to have that esteem, to be able to share what they know. I think it's so important. Yeah.
I think that I was totally agree. I just wanted to interject that I think, you know, seeing and feeling the energy that you have and the passion around this, because you're in a good place right now, and what that's bringing, you know, to your life, and energy and resilience, and, you know, feeling of meaning and contentment in this world is incredible. So I just want to make that plug for all of that restless, unfulfilled energy out there. Even if you don't have, you know, such deep lived experience, you have skills, you've got experience, you've got a journey that can inspire someone else. And through that inspiration, you are gonna receive so much. And I just, you know, I think that's an area that needs to be really emphasized, because it feels good to help, and you feel more meaning in your life, right?
Yeah, no, I did a lot of drugs when I was a young person, and it's because I was meant to feel good. I was meant to feel euphoria, and I get that by being committed to service.
Right.
The other thing I want to mention that ties into what you said, you know, when I would talk to people about the mental illnesses I had, which were severe, you know, I was heavily medicated, they would always want to relate. And then if they hadn't had diagnoses or hadn't been as severe, they'd be like, well, I could never understand or relate. But I'm like, of course you can relate to me. Like, have you suffered? Yes. You know, is the human condition really hard to navigate? Yes. We all have mental health, right? And I think that it's important to understand that some people, you know, do have challenges that we can't grasp. But I think the commonality of human experience is so important, and I think everybody does have a story that can, you know, their journey can inform this work if they feel called to share it. And I don't ever want to make somebody feel like, because I was debilitated by mental illness, that in any way lessens the importance of their own suffering and their own journey, because it's everything, right? You know, how we feel about ourselves and the world we're in. And I just really appreciate ways of framing things that bring us together, focus on the common denominators, on how similar we are, instead of always focusing on the differences.
100%. And through our conversations, I've enjoyed learning about some of the modalities that have helped your healing. And I'm also really interested in those modalities too. And I think the world is in this really, you know, opportune time where we're open to different types of healing, and more open to looking, you know, at diet, at our breath work, at our cold exposure, all these things that you've mentioned and that are rising in popularity. So I just think there's a real place to embrace our island and the many healing professionals that we have here doing incredible things as well. I don't know if any of that resonates with you. I just wonder, you know, how we can make it easier for people to access healing that works.
Yeah.
In addition to the allopathic, more mainstream.
For sure, yeah. Medication has its place, but it's
sure.
so empowering to have practices that, you know, and we now know, we were talking about this, they change your epigenetics. Different genes express depending on what you do.
That's right.
And a lot of the practices that changed my life, you know, fasting, getting in the cold, breath work, you know, if they're taught, if we taught them for free, if we had free classes where anyone is invited, they don't cost anything to practice. And so much of the healing modalities that people are aware of are expensive. You know, we can't all afford to go get a deep tissue massage or,
That's right.
you know, pick your practice. And I think as a species, you know, humanity, like we know that we're at the point where if we don't embrace our healing journey, it's just gonna go off the rails, right? We don't have more wiggle room. We've got to the place where we have to embrace change and we have to get well so that we can help other people get well, so we can kind of get ourselves a little bit back on track.
Yeah. Another piece that I'm passionate about, that I, you know, hope that the Salt Spring Life platform contributes with, and definitely, you know, the Salt Spring mental wellness initiatives, is communication and dialogue in general in our island, in our town, in our world, in our province, everywhere. I just feel right now, if there's ever a time where we need to somehow foster and facilitate, you know, respectful dialogue, where we can share, where we can be vulnerable, where we can pause and really listen to somebody and really hear what's going on for them. And however we can do that, I just think that's so key to this whole kind of coming together and healing, because I just, right now, we're in trouble, we're divided, so let's move through that.
I think I value people's perspectives more who don't share my perspective.
Right.
That's how I learned. I think this idea of like that we're not allowed to disagree, or there are different perspectives don't have value, is crazy making. The intention with the summits is to have it be a safe place where people can talk about their perspectives and we don't have to be so identified with our opinions. One of the things that excites me is that if we can make a lot of progress in Salt Spring, we can create models that other small communities can use. I mean, we're all here for a reason. We all got pulled here because there's a magic in our island, and we wanted a different life, a life that was slower, had more connection, was more like living in a village where we're known and we know the people that live here. And I think the challenges we're facing have made people fall into these false binaries where it's either that we need to be a municipality or we don't. Do we need to be, you know, this or that? And I think there's so much room for different perspectives. And I imagine perspectives as like points, and they create a tension. And in that tension, we'll find the best ideas in the middle, you know, that respect, you know, people's political leanings, whether you're conservative or liberal. We need to value those differences and learn about why people see things the way they do, not try to hammer them and bludgeon them with our opinion so that we can, as if that's going to change anybody's mind. It clearly won't.
Absolutely, and until we're open to actually listening, we create these narratives and we create these assumptions about what other people are thinking, about how they're not compassionate or they don't understand my story. But there's more, you know, common ground than I think we really acknowledge, you know?
Yeah, and that was something else we were talking about. I obviously, like, I work in caring professions, and so I feel a lot of empathy. But I would never judge somebody for not feeling empathy. Like this thing of judging or shaming people, because it doesn't make any sense to me. I just want to say, like, make the case that empathy has been liberating for me. Instead of kind of fulfilling my own egoic need to be great at something or shiny in my life, like learning to serve others, particularly people who are marginalized. It's liberated. And for people that aren't motivated by empathy, be motivated by pragmatism. We know now that, like, not housing people is more expensive than housing them. Not giving them mental health supports, more expensive than giving them mental health supports in the long run. So I'm totally okay with us getting on the same page, but people being motivated from a pragmatic stance, like just practically, how do we deal with the challenges that our culture and our society faces?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there's just something really powerful around hearing about the challenges and hearing about the stories to lessen the feeling of fear. Because I think this feeling of fear that some people have towards marginalized individuals is a barrier for there to be progress and for there to be a collaborative approach. So I think by shining the light on the stories, on the humanity through these mental wellness summits, it's fantastic. It's the step in the right direction, my friend.
Thanks so much, Jai. It has been a pleasure to finally meet you in person and get to begin what I imagine will be a series of conversations.
I hope we can have many more. Thank you so much for the time, William MacPherson. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And mental health, mental wellness initiatives, January the
11th from 2 to 5 and the 18th from 3 to 6. Feel free to email me if you have any questions or are interested in joining.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you,
everyone.